we're going to learn Vayomer Hashem elav mi sam pe la'adam. Hashem said to him, who gave a mouth to man? To Moshe Rabbeinu, who didn't want to go. Page 102 in Torah Or.
Right.
Le'avin zeh, to understand this, מה שכתוב, מה שאמר Moshe, what Moshe said, lo ish dvarim anochi, that I'm not a man of words. Ki kvad peh, because I have a heavy
I'm heavy of lashon.
Heavy of speech. ומה שישיב לו הקדוש ברוך הוא, so it's interesting that the word peh, misam peh la'adam. So there were 85 psukim in the last parsha of Bereshis. Peh psukim in Vayechi. ומה שישיב לו הקדוש ברוך הוא, misam peh, שהוא כולו מקשה. It's all difficult to understand. What is this whole interchange about? וכי לא ידע משה זאת בתחילה מישם פה לאדם. Doesn't Moshe Rabbeinu know, not just believe it, he knows that Hashem is the one who gives a man speech. העניין הובן, to understand this, על פי הקדמה, we have to, how do you say, not introduce, but to...
Introduction.
No. To precede.
Oh, it's a prologue.
We have to, okay, but there's a verb for it. We have to pre-explain.
First of all, we have to precede this explanation with a few introductory words.
D'inei ita b'sefer HaTmuna, so there's a whole thing that in Kabbalah there were different stages. And
What's Sefer HaTmuna?
Oh, so I'm trying to explain. So Sefer HaTmuna is one of the things that's called the teachings of Rabbi Nechunya ben Akana. Rabbi Nechunya ben Akana is called Miordei Merkava. He's called from those who went down into the chariot. Meaning that they learned about the chariot, the Yechezkel's chariot, Isaiah's chariot, Zechariah's chariot. All three of them saw chariots. So we say that Yeshaya's, Isaiah's is in the world of creation, and Yechezkel's is in the world of formation, and Zechariah's is in the world of action. And all these chariots are ways in which a person learns how to serve God.
When was this in the times of the Gemara?
So Rabbi Nechunya ben Kana is a Tana. He's from the time of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. He's a little bit earlier. And there's a whole literature that's ascribed to him. We don't know to what level. By the Rishonim, it's pshat that it's from him. By the Rishonim, it's mamish pshat. So one of the things that appears in that literature that did not appear in the Zohar, as far as I remember, it doesn't appear at all in the Zohar, which is a problem. It's sort of like saying that there are masechtas that didn't go through Rebbe. There's Mishnah that didn't go through Rebbe. Not Braita. We're not talking about Braita. We're talking about that somebody else had also another Mishnah. It's true. Many people had Mishnayos. And they had Mishnayos from their teachers. So the whole tradition of Rabbi Shmuel wasn't put into the Mishnah. It was retained separately. There's all kinds of things. So if it was retained separately, still said from somebody who knows a lot, but it wasn't organically added into what the Mishnah says. So there can be things that are not the same, or at least you have to shift the gears to be able to understand. It's like from a different perspective altogether. So one of the things in Sefer HaTmuna, which is one of these three books, it says, Shezeh ha'olam u'shmita shniya, that this world is a second. It's really the second. The state of the world as it is a second shmita. It's a second series of 7. Shemitah being 7. Doesn't matter if it's years or...
Created once and destroyed and recreated?
No, it could be. Could be that that's part of what Rabbi Yehuda says, that Hashem was creating worlds and destroying them. It's not clear. It's not clear to what it exactly wants to say. Where did it get the idea that it's seven, that it works in sevens? Where do you get this idea from? And since it's a second, there was also a Shemitah before it, before this reality. And that Shemitah came from the sphere of Chesed.
I didn't know it was Chesed.
Because this one is Din. It's sort of saying...
Huh? I thought our world was Tiferes.
Why?
It's beautiful. It's perfect.
Yeah, I don't know. Our world, it says in the introduction to Tikkun Zohar, is to teach people that there's reward and punishment. That's what this world is about. This is what we say every Friday night. La'achaza ech mitnaeg alma bedinu v'mishpat. That the whole reality as it is here is in order to teach people that there's reward and punishment. There's consequences to actions. That's I don't know how to say this. These things you need to write them out and sort of find language to say them. But what this means is, you could have the same reality and there's no din in it. Like what you just said, the world's perfect. What do you mean it's perfect? People feel very, very hard here. They have a very hard time. So it's perfect if your goal is to teach people to have reward and punishment, because maybe it teaches that. But it's not very perfect if you think that the world is about enjoying yourself. It's not a very good place to enjoy yourself. Sometimes it is.
Plenty of
Sometimes.
not what do you call it, affiliated to the religion of the Jews, are having a great time.
No.
Killing, drinking,
Until they get killed.
immorality and everything. Fine. Under the
Everybody suffers. Everybody suffers. And the question becomes, if the purpose was to enjoy ourselves, there would be no illness, there would be no need to eat, there would be, need, not much like people in Africa that die from starvation, there would be no shortage of water. A person would not be dependent on physical things. He would just enjoy himself. There wouldn't be heartache, there wouldn't be tragedy.
Not for this Hashem created the world.
Oh, so the question is, what's the purpose of the world? And in the sages, it's very clear.
Serve my Creator.
Hmm?
To serve my Creator.
Oh, so you could serve your Creator in many ways. Why does it have to be with din? Why does it have to be with reward and punishment?
Keep me on the right track.
Keep you on the right track in a different way. Send little pitkas down from heaven. Well, what's the?
No, a good slap in the face, It's
I'm said a good slap in the face is not so. A lot of people would take it compared to what they go through. It's not a slap in the face. So there's a whole question of what the purpose of the world is. So in the Agdama of Tikkun Zohar, he says this, and remember we learned that the Tikkun Zohar is really divided into 4 sections: the introduction, then 3 to go back. So he says this in the lowest part. In the world of Bludim.
World of?
Our reality, the reality of Tikkun, of Bludim, right? Akudim, Vrudim. Remember? That in Yaakov's dream he saw the 3 types of cattle.
Yeah.
And they represent 3 different spiritual realities. And we said that in Chassidus, these 3 spiritual realities, they're called the external man, the middle man, and the inner man in each person. And that the Vrudim, the external man, is where things work by reward and punishment. And that just to understand that, so many psychological problems are saved the person if he just understands that I live my life in multiple dimensions. It's not just in one. So there is the dimension of reward and punishment. And why? Because Hashem is using this reality right now, according to Tikkun Zohar, to teach us reward and punishment. But that's external. That's the most external part of reality. The more a person is connected to the internal side, to the middle man, and certainly to the inner man, that is not the purpose of reality. Serving Him is not through reward and punishment. Serving God is not through reward and punishment. It's a whole different approach. In any case, so the Sefer HaTmunah, what wasn't understood about it was, it's only, when you read the pshat of it, it sounds like it's saying, and that's how the word Mekubalim who understood this, which is, according to Arizal, completely mistaken. But they took it physically. And they said, what the Sefer HaTmunah is saying is that these 7,000 years, it says in the Gemara, in Avodah Zarah, and in Rosh Hashanah, it says that the world will be 6,000 years and then 1,000 years charuv, that this reality won't exist anymore for 1,000 years. So they understood that it means that this is 7,000 years, and the world before that was also 7,000 years. That's how they understood it in Pshat. And then they went further. They went further and they said, if there was a previous one, and Sefer Tumah only says it was a previous one, there must be ones after this. Okay. So, how many? So if it's each one's a Shemitah, how many Shemitot in a Yovel? 7. So there must be 7 Shemitot, which is all very logical. It's all fine. It's not a problem. So 7 Shmitot. So then suddenly they came and said, but who says we're in the second one? Maybe we didn't understand him properly. Maybe Sheni is not Sheni. Maybe it's Shishi. Maybe it's the 6th.
How'd you change the Sheni and Shishi?
I don't know. But there was a sage, his name was Rabbi Yitzchak de Minako. He was a Mekubal. He was the one who went to research whether the Zohar was authentic or not. They themselves didn't know. He lived in the 13th century. When the Zohar appeared, it was sometime in the 1300s.
Where did it appear from?
It appeared in Italy.
From where?
A person named Rabbi Moshe de Leon.
Rabbi Moshe?
De Leon. A person, if you learn Rabbi Moshe de Leon's writings, and you learn the Zohar, you see that in Kishel, there's no connection. One is like, it's sort of like, somebody at the level of a high school student writing a dissertation. It's not going to happen. I don't care what he does. He may here and there give you an idea, not a dissertation. You know what? Somebody was like way, way up in the academic ladder. It's like a yeshiva student writing a Rash Batshuva. It's not going to happen. You can fake it, but you can fake it for maybe 2 paragraphs. You can't fake it for the size of the Zohar.
Where was the Zohar all this time?
So where was it? Apparently it was being handed down. Exactly who handed it down, so we know that the Ramban had it for some time. The Ramban quotes and the Bachai quotes from the Zohar before the Zohar was published. So of course people say, what do you mean? The Zohar copied from the Ramban and the Bachai. But no, it's clear that the Ramban and the Bachai are quoting. It's clear that they're quoting from a book. They didn't make the words they're saying up. They're saying this is a medrash. It was known beforehand as Midrash Rabbi Shimon, or it was known, there was another name for it, I don't remember right now. They had names for it. Everybody knew it was around. It's like we know that, it's the same way that we know that there used to be a Gemara on Kochim. We know there was. We know there was a Yerushalmi. We know that there was on all of Kochim. We don't have it. We don't know where it is. It wasn't handed down. The Zohar was in the same situation in the 13th century, in the 14th century. So when it was found, when the Zohar was found, it didn't mention this thing of Shmitot. It didn't have a medrash like this in it. And there became a question of how do you connect these two things together? So Rabbi Yitzchak de Minako, so he was the one who went to research where the Zohar had come from. Where did it come from? How did Rabbi Moshe de Leon get it?
He didn't exactly Google it.
No, he had to go to where he lived, to Leon, in Spain, and he had to find out what was going on, where exactly it came from. So, and he came too late. Moshe de Leon had passed away already. So he had a whole issue about how to, and he found out all kinds of interesting things. The wife said one thing, the servant said something else. Everybody had a different story about where it was from. The bottom line was that he understood that he didn't write it. He had received it in some way from somebody. And he didn't know, he couldn't trace it back beyond that. There was no way to figure out where it came from. So the modern scholars, they try to figure this out and that out. In the end, there's no good explanation for where it came from. But the point was, Yitzchak de Minako, he knew the early Kabbalah and the book of Kana, Sefer HaTmuna, the books of the Kana, they were around anyway. People knew them. So he knew about the story of Shmitot. He knew about this medrash. How he came to 6, I have no idea. But if you move 600 years later, you suddenly see that somebody like Aryeh Kaplan, what did he do with this? When he learned about this whole sugya, and by the way, it's good scholarship that he learned in the 1970s to figure out there was a sugya here. It was not easy. The books weren't so easy to get. I mean, you had to spend a lot of time reading and understanding what you're reading. So he came up with this understanding somehow, which is very far-fetched and has nothing to do with anything, but it's nice, is that if it's really the 6th Shemitah, and you do that every year is 1,000 years, because in Hashem's eyes, it doesn't say anywhere that this is in Hashem's eyes, but in Hashem's eyes every day is 1,000, so it's 365,000 years in each year of the Shemitah, and multiply it by 7. And then multiply it by 6, because 6 Shmitot are done, and we're in the 50. Anyway, he came to some figure like 13 billion years. And he loved it. Why did he love it? Because that's what science says. 13.7, you come up with something like that. Say no. Okay, very nice. And but the problem was that people took this seriously. And unfortunately, all the rationalists who are looking constantly for something to debunk the myth of the world being 5,780 years old. So they have to find some place in the sages or somewhere that somebody says, so understand the rationalists are going to an obscure text in Kabbalah with a more obscure interpretation from Rabbi Yitzchak de Binaka, who they've never heard of and they don't care what he wrote, it didn't write anywhere else. And to the point, and then Aryeh Kaplan, and we came up with some figure. You see, there's dissenting opinions. Not everybody agrees that it's 5,780 years.
The Rebbe debunks it.
It's all. I'm trying to say you don't need the Rebbe for this. Right away, you can see how far-fetched it is. It's very nice as Torah. We never discount Torah. A person wants to learn, wants to say this far, that's far. It's really nice. But
where did Aryeh Kaplan write this down?
He didn't write it. He wrote it down. It was never published. I heard it.
Heard it?
I heard it. You can say you want to talk about Hashgacha Pratis. Why would a guy who was in sophomore year of Johns Hopkins suddenly end up with a tape from Aryeh Kaplan, who almost nobody heard? It was 1989. And he had said this maybe 15 years earlier, in the 70s. I was probably 4 years old when he said it. And I ended up with the tape when I was in college. I don't know how I got it. And I heard the class like 5-6 times. And I didn't understand who the people were or what text he was talking about. As I grew older, so I began to understand what he was talking about. It was very interesting that Hashem planted that in my life when I was 18. I was 18 back then. Very strange. And then it still took me, after that, another 10 years to come to this Torah from the Alter Rebbe to begin to understand what the whole story is about. So comes the Alter Rebbe and says, this whole story about Shmitot, רוצה לומר, והשמיטה עד עכשיו רוצה משית אלפי שני דעה ועלמא וחרפו, these 7,000 years that we're in now, הוא ממידת הפחד. It doesn't even say they're din. It says fear. Mm-hmm. Because this world is full of fear. ולכן דרכיה חזקים וקשים ורעים. And the main thing, it's Mamish Kennedy. The only thing you have to fear, where do you take that from? From the Baal Shem Tov's father. The only thing you have to fear is fear itself. You should be afraid only of Hashem.
What to do with Kennedy?
What? That was a famous statement from Kennedy in 1961 or 62. He said the only thing we have to fear is fear itself. So it's not exactly the Baal Shem Tov's father, but it's clear that somehow it trickled down. I don't know exactly where from. A lot of things from the Baal Shem Tov, you find out that they were, I told you about the different things that from Voltaire. It's very strange. At the same time, or earlier, Voltaire said many of the same statements that the Baal Shem Tov said. So
when did Voltaire live? He lived after the Baal Shem Tov.
No, he lived before. Voltaire passed away in 1710, something like that. They're concurrent. They were in the same time period, but he was a little bit older. How much older, I don't remember. And I think, I mean, I don't know this, but the famous story I told you once, the Alter Rebbe sent somebody to Paris. The merchant from Vitebsk, where was he from? He slowly became bigger and bigger until eventually he sent him to Paris to buy
Königsberg, actually.
for Königsberg. Yeah. And he met somebody in the theater there. Carl's, whatever. I have a suspicion that it's related to Voltaire. So
Voltaire wasn't Jewish.
Voltaire wasn't Jewish. We don't know that he was Jewish.
He could read Hebrew.
But he could read Hebrew. Everybody then could read Hebrew, especially in a Christian country. Voltaire was very progressive. It was a very, very strong sign of being Jewish.
Yeah.
Good or not, that's how it is. The Jews want to make the world move forward. So in any case, so getting back to this. So now he says pachad. So pachad, really, I had a conversation with somebody last night. She wanted to talk to the Rav. I told her it's hard to talk to him on the phone. So we'll talk to him. So you see that people are full of fear. They can't believe that there's only a Hashem. That's what this world is about. The faith is not clear. The people don't understand there's only Hashem, and we all suffer from it. So we think there's illness, and we think there's this and that. We have to fear those things. So we better take vitamins, and this and that. It's better to fear Hashem. If you're going to fear something,
because you're taking vitamin tablets doesn't mean to say that you don't fear Hashem. Hashem created the world, and He put certain things in it, and you're entitled to utilize them.
Okay, if you're utilizing them,
you know who's the first mover.
If you're utilizing them, thinking this thought all the time, you're right. But most people don't. That's not their experience with taking vitamins. Their experience with taking vitamins is this will protect me. Okay? I have to protect myself from the terrible, awful diseases out there, which is true. You have to protect yourself. But the real protection is emunah. And everything else.
If you respect the Sefer HaGofur, then everything would be fine.
Yeah, no, that's terrible. The Sefer HaGofur is what we have today. It's back. It's been back for a while.
We don't have the one that's.
We don't need his. Ours is better. We can take care of hepatitis C. He couldn't take care of hepatitis C.
It didn't exist then.
Yeah, that's where you get the pigeons from. That's from that Sefer HaGofur. We know how to give the antivirus to this thing. What's the name of the company in America that makes it? You must know. Each treatment is $100,000, but it gets rid of it. It's some kind of interferon that they developed specifically for it. Crazy thing. I remember when it was proved conclusively that it 99.9% success. It's really high. It's like not normal. Their menaya, their stock went up like $60, like 30 or 40% overnight. Anyway, so the biggest thing is fear, and that's these 7,000 years. That's why he writes in the Tanya, that all the actions in this world are hard and difficult. And
Where's that in Tanya?
In chapter 2. In chapter 2? No, in chapter 6. Chapter 6 he writes that. He says that everything in this world is hard. Why is it hard? Because Hashem wants to teach you how to deal with, call it, reward and punishment. So it has to be hard. You have to work for it. And it also, here's the punishments, pretty big, that the first and second temple were destroyed. But in the first Shemitah, in the first 7,000, as it were, years, that's what it sounds like, years. It doesn't say the word years here. It just says it's the first Shemitah. Shemitah is 7,000 years, but the word that appears in Sefer HaKanah And Sefer HaTmuna is just, I keep saying Kana because it's one of the three books. So there, it wasn't difficult, it was all chesed. הייתה עבודה באופן אחר, וגם התורה היה באופן אחר. יויין שם. This is what he says in Sefer HaTmuna. The Torah was understood differently. This is a very big deal. What is this Torah? What is the Torah that was there? What's it called? Torah Keduma. The early Torah. In the Arizal's Kabbalah, in Chassidus, that is the source about which in Shmuel it says, Al ken yomru mashal kadmonim reshaim etze resha. This is what? In the world are you talking about? Mashal kadmoni, an ancient parable. So the Arizal explains, and it's explained in length in Chassidus, that it's talking about the Torah of the Shemitah of Chesed. And what does it mean? It's the same Torah, it's the same text, but it's all understood in Chesed. There's no reward and punishment. And the thing that people can't stand, that Hashem's going to punish you. Why? Because the rest of the world doesn't work this way. But Hashem, He should be above this. He shouldn't punish you. He should be clear sailing. So it says in the previous Shemitah, it wasn't like that. Okay. What is this previous Shemitah? So when you begin to learn from the Arizal, so the Arizal, he was a normalizer, you can call it, or he brought everything together. So he didn't only take the Zohar. The Arizal knew all of Kabbalah. He also knew the other texts. So he brought everything together and he put it in context. So what did he?
The Arizal didn't have any problem with the authenticity or otherwise.
No, of course not. Of the Zohar.
Yeah, so
of course not. But he also didn't have any problem with the authenticity of this, with the Yodea Merkava.
So he knew it was genuine.
That he knew?
The Zohar was genuine.
Of course. Yeah, it's not an issue.
So he had no problem with Rabbi Leon and all this other.
No. Yeah. Well, he's one of the few people that he didn't really try to. I don't remember any. It doesn't mean anything. I don't remember any word that he takes from his writings, from Moshe Genuth's writings. It's not.
Doesn't?
I don't remember that the Arizal refers to his writings. Maybe in one place. There's one little thing that he took from him. In general, he read everything. He saw everything. I don't know how. He was very hardy, living in Tzfat, in Egypt. Maybe in Egypt it was easier to get stuff. I don't know, when he was younger.
Maybe at Ruach HaKodesh.
Yeah, it could be that he read the texts above,
right.
Not here.
It's not it's
that, you know what? When you look at what he knew, it's almost impossible to understand how in the 16th century somebody could have seen all these books.
Nobody knew things that nobody could.
That also, but I'm saying in terms
he went to Galil, and he says, this is the kever of X, and this is the kever of
there
Y.
he saw what he saw.
I mean, that to me is the best magic trick that anybody ever did, you know. It was inside a box under the ground. No, I'm saying, you know, that's only one way you can explain that is Ruach HaKodesh.
Good, no, that's what it says in the Gemara. In the Gemara, they used to go to sometimes they had questions. They went to where somebody was buried and they talked to the neshama and they came back with an answer. There's many things like that in the Gemara. In any case, there's nobody like that today, but it used to be. So what does he say? He says, and they were only good in chesed. כך דעת ספר התמונה וחרב נמשכו המקובלים האחרונים לדון מזה שמוכרח להיות עוד 5 שמיטות אחר השמיטה הזו כי צריך להיות 7 שמיטות כדי 7 מיטות עליונות and so on. So there's books that took this idea from Sefer HaTmuna and they extended it forward, like I said, and then there was people like Rabbi Yitzchak de Minako who took it even further and said, no, it's not. We're not in this in the we're not in the second Shemitah. We're actually in the sixth. Okay. אבל האריזל פליג על זה, but the Arizal didn't accept this opinion. במה שלמדו שצריך להיות עוד 8 שמיטות. It's not true. It's not 5 more. וגם בעניין, meaning they tried to say that the Mashiach is going to come in 35,000 years. Because there is such an idea of 50,000 yovlot. And it became confused together. They began to explain it like that. The Arizal explained that all of this is talking about something spiritual. Meaning, if you're talking about there being something before, you're talking about a spiritual level. You're not talking about a physical reality. The only physical reality we have is this physical reality. And this was created by...
Whoever says the Mashiach is here, so there's no 35,000 years.
No, of course not. No, there's no dependency. But again, this was, until the Arizal came, there was something, he means those after Sefer HaTmuna and before the Arizal. But after that, once the Arizal said what he said, nobody serious would contradict him. Okay? So what did he say? וגם בעניין מה שהעולם הזה הוא בשמיטה שנייה עם היותו תסביר לי גם כן, even though the Arizal says you're right, this world is a world of din, of pachad. לכן פתחה התורה בבית בראשית לומר שכבר הייתה שמיטה אחת ועכשיו היא שמיטה שנייה, אבל פירש האריזה דאין הכוונה לומר שהעולם גשמי כמו העולם הזה. It doesn't mean that there was an alternate reality, a different reality before this reality, a physical reality. There was no physical reality before what we have now. דעכשיו, אם שמיים וארץ גשמיים, דומה צומח חיים מדבר, within heavens and earth, and the four types of creations, כי זה לא היה רק בשמיטה זו דווקא לבד. Only in this shmita, or this 7,000 years, is where things receive a body. And it's only here that there is a body. Okay? The body that we'll have after Tchiyat HaMetim is already a different body. It's not the same body that we have here. Okay? It acts and it functions in a different way. It'll be physical, but it won't be the same body. In the same way that before Adam HaRishon sinned, he also had something of a body, but it wasn't exactly the body that we know. His body was very big. It was very luminous. It wasn't like the crude flesh that we have now. So there was never a different physical reality. בעניין השמיטה, so what does it mean? שהייתה לפני זו הוא עניין עולם התוהו. So that, really what Sefer HaTmuna here is talking about in his language, and this is a big principle in learning any kind of medrash, you have to understand what's hiding behind the parable. Says the Arizal, what's hiding behind the parable of Sefer HaTmuna is exactly what I've been talking about, that even in the Zohar is not so clear, but is this reality of the tohu that comes before the tikkun. And the tohu that comes before the tikkun is the world of tohu that was broken, that shattered and broken. It's a spiritual reality. It's not a physical reality. It's what in Chassidus later becomes the reason for why everybody's broken, because everybody's picking up pieces. And that's where the idea of halat nitzotzot comes from. And we learned it many times in terms of relationship between Yaakov and Esav. That Esav represents the world of Tohu, and Yaakov represents the world of Tikkun. So he says that, yes, this thing existed, but it's a spiritual reality. Which spiritual reality are we talking about? The world of Tohu. When you say world of Tohu, do you mean that the world of Tohu existed before year one of creation? No, I mean it's here right now. It's just a spiritual reality that's above this reality. So instead of thinking of Shmitot as linearly, you have to open up another dimension and say the Shmitot are dimensions of reality. If you follow that formula, that the previous Shemitah is just a higher dimension of this reality, or call it a deeper dimension in the psyche, like Chassidus would call it, so then there certainly can be 5 more. If you're saying there will be more dimensions open to us, yeah, there'll be more dimensions. But this, the second one, the second level, this is where the physical reality exists. So what would be these 5 more? That's a different question. He doesn't get into this here. But he says that's the way to treat this. היינו עניין 7 מלכים קדמיים דתו שמתו, שהוא עניין ספירות רוחניים כנודע, בעניין שמיטה עד עכשיו, ועניין עולם התיקון שנעשה אחר כך, בכתבי האריזה. Okay, so this is a very important introduction to the whole topic of how to understand parallel midrashim, because in the Zohar is a medrash, and the Sefer HaTmuna is a medrash. So they say it in different languages. But the greatness is to unify it all into one grand scheme. And that's what the Arizal did with his Kabbalah. So we can continue B'ezrat Hashem tomorrow.
Okay, I have the true story about Boris Johnson and the Rebbe.
Should I tape it?
No.
Okay.
No.